Welcome back to the Bunkhouse. I'm very proud to introduce you to a good friend of mine from over in Stamford, Texas. He's the general manager of the Swenson Ranches. His name is Dennis Braden, and we're going to talk about ranching and horses and cattle and all kinds of stuff like that. And Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us.
I'm glad to be here, Red. Thank you very much.
You know, you and I have talked on the radio about all the different things that you see with ranching and the problems that we're having with ranching and making a business out of it. The livestock industry is a very important part of our food supply. Now, you told me one time that there's a number that you know that you feed with the number of cattle you raise, you feed that number of people. And what is that number?
Swenson Land and Cattle Company will raise enough beef to meet the needs of 56,000 Americans for their annual meat consumption needs.
So you can feed 56,000 people a year with the number of cattle you raise on the Swenson ranches.
Yes.
Now, Dennis, we all know that it gets tougher and tougher and tougher to operate our livestock industry and our livestock operations as a business. And what are some of the challenges that face the livestock producer?
Our cost of management continues to increase. The value of the commodity, while we're at a kind of an all-time high in that value today, it still has the potential of going back to the price equal to the 1970s. Our operation costs don't have that ability. Right. Feed costs are 3 times what they were just 10 years ago. Insurance is a terrible, our fixed costs are a terrible problem. Trying to maintain the individuals that work for us and the lifestyles that they're accustomed to. It's hard for us to keep paying individuals what they're worth, and it's just every time those things raise, that's one less calf we have for profit. A calf's worth $500, and it doesn't take long to eat that up in operation cost.
Then, in addition to that, you have all of the problems that are daily things like brush control and water supply. Water supply is a big situation for a lot of ranchers.
One of our ranches, we have no underground water, so our limiting factor will be determined by how much rain we have that year, which makes a major difference in our management decisions through the year based on whether we have water available on that ranch to be able to put cattle over there. Again, the cost of drilling wells, maintaining pipelines, it just continues to increase. Another thing that a lot of individuals don't understand is that parts of the western Texas and western United States, if it weren't for agriculture, they wouldn't have any wild game in those areas. Because of the water development the ranchers have done, that's created a habitat for wild animals that 100 years ago wouldn't have been there.
I've heard people say they want to take that land back to its pristine condition. Well, you can ask the Utes and the Arapahoes what the pristine condition is. Most of that land in the West, they eat roots and lizards. There weren't any elk and deer and big game in that country at all because of the water supply. So the rancher has improved and increased the water supply to those areas.
That's exactly right.
You know, it's kind of funny that people take for granted the food in our grocery store. And they take for granted that it's just going to appear regardless of what they do or what they think about it. And the vast majority of the people in our country not only do not think about where the food comes from, they have no earthly idea what it takes a producer to provide that food stuff to that grocery store so they can buy it. And how do we change that concept? How do we go about educating people?
One at a time. These type of programs help, and then just one individual at a time is the best way. Unfortunately, probably the surest way to educate them is to have a good old depression or a good old famine. You know, I was chairman of the New Mexico Beef Council years back, and I kind of would have liked to seen one of the grocery store chains in New Mexico destock their shelves over the weekend, open the doors on Monday morning and let people fight for 2 or 3 loaves of bread on the shelves and kind of get the point across. But American today spends about 10% of their available income on food. It's the most healthy, wholesome, dependable, always there food source the world has ever known. And it's a little bit vogue to beat it up.
And it's the safest.
And safest. And when I was a young man, back in the 50s, one person produced food for about 50. Today, one person produces food for about 136.
Dennis, that's a pretty sobering thought.
Yes, sir.
That we produce all of our food, except for what we import now, with less than 2% of our population.
That's correct.
And thank you for doing your part. And you know, Aldo Leopold said that the terrible thing about not growing up on a farm or a ranch is that you have a tendency to believe that food comes from the grocery store and heat comes from the furnace.
Yeah.
But another thing that lots of folks don't know is the amount of oxygen that 1 acre of grassland, healthy grassland, provides to the atmosphere. And I read an article that 1 acre of healthy grassland will supply enough oxygen for 8 people for a whole year. Just 1 acre of grassland. So let's keep our grasslands healthy. Let's keep our livestock industry healthy. And let's keep feeding ourselves in the way we know which is best.
Amen.
Dennis, thank you so much for joining
Red.
us. It's
Appreciate
always
it.
good to be with you.
I'm glad to be here.
You folks stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm going to run out to the chuck wagon right quick and see what Cliff and Bill are fixing up. In the meantime, go with us to the museum in Oklahoma City, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, for a museum moment. And I'll be right back. Don, there are several kinds of American-made firearms, and every one of them had a role in the development of the West.
Now, and whether your tastes lean toward Colts, Winchesters, or Parker shotguns, this gallery ought to be on any hunter's bucket list.
Let's take a look.
Quality firearms often display an aesthetic merit, which combines pleasing form and line with mechanical inventiveness. The Max Weitzenhofer collection of fine arms includes nearly 100 firearms. Among them, this deluxe model 1866 Winchester sporting rifle, engraved by the famous Conrad Ulrich. Winchester commissioned Ulrich to do his most outstanding engraving on this rifle, which was then displayed in the Winchester booth at the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. It's a must-see when you visit the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum.
Now, to plan your visit to the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City, go to nationalcowboymuseum.org.